video?
No. Good evening, everybody.
Welcome to the Dr. G Show. It's Dr. G and the...
And the boss, that's right.
boss.
And the boss.
I'm Dr. Garrett, and this is Holly Hajajina.
Yeah. We'll never get that right, so I have learned to accept this.
So you know what's funny? So, in my phone, if I say, Siri, call Holly Hajaj, it says, you don't have any contact information for her. And then I'll say, all right, Siri, call Holly. And she'll like, Holly Hajajina.
That's how she says it?
Holly Hajaj.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, God dang it. What the hell?
Oh, right. In other words, your pronunciation isn't good?
Maybe. All right. There's Tracy
Welcome.
Coleman. He's tearing up his kitchen.
Hi, people.
How y'all doing? Well, this is episode 142. Last time we talked about inflammation, which was a pretty good topic. And that's what I'm going to Thailand to go lecture as the keynote speaker at an international symposium on... Symposium?
Symposium.
I suppose it's a symposium.
It's kind of like a jajana.
Yeah. So, over there, if I mess up words and stuff, I'll be like, it's just my accent. It's my American accent.
If you spell it wrong, nobody will notice.
Yeah, I asked, so does everybody speak English? Or should I have, like, translated slides, you know? But he said everybody speaks English there, so.
Oh.
All the medical students and doctors there, so it'll be fun.
That's good.
But that's pretty awesome that inflammation is a huge chunk. And just like I think Holly said last time, Verskow in the 1800s, before we even knew what was in blood, said that inflammation is the cause of all disease. And then in 2019, we still say...
The research validates it. So, the same thing.
We validate it. Screw research. We validate it.
Hey, it's good to rely on science, in my opinion.
All right.
My eye looks black.
Yeah, that's because you've been beaten up. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So today we're going to talk about a really interesting topic called methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase.
That is his most favorite thing to say in every single show.
It's my shirt. See?
And you'll see why. Can they see it? Can you read it correctly? Does it read from right to left?
So it's methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase is the pathway. And for a lot of people, that DNA pathway is mutated, and it's a pretty big topic these days. In fact, me and a group of, are we scientists? I think we're scientists, are studying this at KU Medical School in different applications. So it's a pretty exciting thing, but there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of overgeneralizations out there. And then... sometimes people don't even know about it.
Yeah, so, why is this important? Have you guys heard of this, by the way? If you haven't, or if you can give us some feedback, then we can kind of tailor our discussion to what you do know.
Yeah. We call it the MTHFR gene.
The MTHFR.
Yeah, it looks so inappropriate.
Like, why is this important? Why would this be important to you? So I kind of think, as we kind of get started here, it might be good to just start talking a little bit about genetics in general.
Yeah.
And whether DNA is your destiny, what that means. Could you give us some information?
Why, yes I can, Mrs. Science.
Oh, that would be great, Dr. G.
Okay, so...
Oh, excellent. Okay.
With DNA... So, it's funny because it gets worse and worse. Because I took genetics as part of one of my undergraduate degrees.
Thank you for responses, guys.
Yeah. And we didn't cover any of this stuff in genetics, really. So, one of the things about your DNA, so every single cell, you have 50 to 100 trillion cells in your body. Each one has its own copy of DNA that originally started half from your mama and half from your daddy, unless you were born in a test tube.
Can I ask a question?
A test tube is like a... What? What's your question?
Are they all literally the same?
No.
The DNA blueprint?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And that becomes a really interesting frustration within genetics. So the idea is, so like my daughters, two of my daughters are twins. And so they're identical twins. So half the time I got their names right, half the time I get it wrong, until Jane cut her hair, and this, I thank you, Jesus, I can tell them apart. So other than that, they started looking slightly different as time went on. And so with what's called epigenetics, so the ability to kind of modify and change the appearance of our cells, that happens on a constant basis. So every single day you're turning over new cells, and then your DNA replicates, and it has the equal chance of being correct as it does mutated.
And is this primarily because of your internal and external environment?
Right. Well, internal and external. Like
So
even
both
thoughts
endogenous and
have been shown to control your mutations.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of things that play into this, but then every single time you turn over cells, so like every single cell in your body, at least within 10 years, has all turned over at least once, if not thousands of times by then. So you have thousands of times to slightly cause variations, and now you can look at my twins, and one's slightly taller than the other.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so they have these little slight variations, which I think most of the time I could probably tell now, but maybe if they got the same hair again, I may not know. But there's slight variations in them, right?
You don't know them by their personalities?
Oh, I know their personalities now, but yeah. And so...
Hello, Kendra.
So every single cell has this ability to kind of like differentiate, even though it started with that original DNA package, right? So DNA is never destiny. It's never destiny.
What are the things that the very small percentage that is destiny? What can we not change?
Maybe like... So the phenotyping's the stuff that you can easily
Your
change.
eye color?
The genotyping's a little bit harder, but then again, you can reverse mutations with that. So probably things more like eye color, hair color, height, gender. Although we're seeing some changes with that too now in America.
But that's not changed biologically. Those things aren't changed biologically.
Not really.
Naturally.
Like people can go from...
Through lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. That's not even always true either, because, you know, like, if you guys didn't know this, I sure have luxurious, thick, black hair, right? Oh, come on. But
yes,
listen.
Dr. G.
But guess what I looked like when I was up to 5 years old?
Blonde.
Blonde with golden curls. Isn't that insane? So,
why is that? Why do kids? It's almost like with animals too, like or babies. They're usually their eyes are usually kind of bluish. Then their traits really kind of set in.
Right. So you have all these little epigenetic changes that are taking place
Really quickly.
Right. So every strand of DNA is 6 feet long inside that cell. Isn't that crazy? 6
We're
foot
really
long
well
thing.
folded.
Yeah. And so that DNA contains everything about your body, but it also contains everything to make everything else in the world. So there's not human DNA, there's really just kind of DNA. And most all your DNA is turned off because that creates other stuff. So most people don't know, and don't ever take embryology. Oh my God, it's the scariest class to ever take.
Why?
It's every mutant freako thing you ever have seen in a movie, it can occur. Cyclops is real.
I think that would be interesting. A working eyeball that you can see through, or just an appendage.
Yeah, like just it's all messed up.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's crazy. So, there are people born with human tails. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Didn't your ex have one? So, again, people are freaked out about that. So, like, you can actually look online and see people with human tails now, right? And that's why, you know, genetically, you're no different from a monkey or anything else, a wheat plant, a frog. And depending on what genes turn on, that then turns on those features for you, those phenotypes or some of those genotypes. So, when our body says, hey, we're a human, let's dissolve that tail. So most all people are born with a tailbone, but not the rest of the bones that make the tail.
coccyx.
That's right. That's inappropriate. But in other countries, it's inappropriate, or it's frowned on to cut those things off. So there are people with tails, which I thought's amazing.
What do they do with clothing? Do they just slide it down one leg of the jeans?
They probably tuck it between the butt cheeks. That's what I do.
Did you say that's what you do?
That's what I would do. But wouldn't it be amazing?
No offense
wouldn't it
to
be
you
amazing
with tails. We're just curious about how you use them.
If you have a tail, do you tuck it or wave it? So I thought it would be better.
You should own it. You should just
That's right.
own
You
your
look
tail.
at tail, boom.
That's special.
I would hope to have like a little fur at the end too. So.
All right,
Really?
Confession.
What?
I have webbed toes.
Is that why you swim so well?
I wanted to be a mermaid as a kid.
Yeah.
And I was a swimmer.
How many toes are webbed?
The second and the third toe on both feet. Does anybody else have it? I've met two other people. One person I worked with, and it seemed like there was one other
Were they a
person.
cyclops
my
too?
my great grandmother had it, and then so did my coworker when I worked at Barnes and Noble.
Could you imagine if you had webbed toes, a tail, and a cyclops?
You would be revered in India.
Yeah.
You'd be like a god.
I'd tell people I had
Yes.
powers, and they better not mess with me. So,
okay, Rhonda dated somebody with the webbed toes. It's pretty. I think it's
Nice.
more common than you would think, and his family had them too.
Yeah, and that's because people have webbed fingers and webbed toes in utero, and then it says, "Hey, this is a person," so it starts dissolving those. But
So,
if mom's,
are you saying I'm not really a person?
well, if mom smokes crack at the right stage of development, she can arrest that process. So even like you think about anal genital changes. So like women have a shorter taint. Men have a longer taint.
What?
Or the devil's ridge, as my mama called it.
Or the perineum, which is the medical
Oh,
term.
perineum. That's a good word.
Wait.
Yeah.
Hold, please.
Okay. So,
When you say length of the perineum, are
Mm-hmm.
you talking horizontal while standing or vertical?
from anus to vagina, anus to scrotum.
Women have a longer one?
Women have a shorter one. That's why women are more likely to get UTIs.
Or why they tear in childbirth.
That's right.
Oh.
So
that's just wrong.
that's because men start as women, and then again, genetically, they say, oh, there's a Y chromosome, so the girl parts turn into boy parts, and then that starts widening. But like Harvard says that you can, women that touch a receipt at Walmart or Dillon's or grocery store, that thermal receipt has enough bisphenol A, which is made from benzene,
To shorten their
which is
taint.
estrogenic, which could cause anal genital malformation in that developing fetus,
Okay.
even to the point of causing small penises, right? We like to call them white in the medical field.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. So it's funny because I was telling my class this once when I was teaching microbiology, and one of the nurses was like, "Oh my God, that's why." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "I work for a urologist," and she said, over the last 10 years, like all these moms are coming in going, "Is this normal?" Right? And so you were seeing that again, arresting that process, even to the point where not just in utero, but again,
Arresting the process of development.
we have women or men converting back to women, so their prostates are growing into the size of a uterus, so they get benign prostatic hypertrophy, and then the male breasts are changing back to female breasts and even lactating. So genetically,
But that's another show.
That's a
When
whole
we
nother
talk about chemicals.
yeah. So then, if you take that 6 foot of DNA, so we said about 97% of it's off. That becomes your duck, your bat, your mongoose, right? But each little segment of that 6 feet has a series of codons that create a gene. So you have a histone, and the histone is like a little map for the next set, and so it can replicate it perfectly. So it's like a little key. And then you have this gene, and then another histone, another gene, histone, another gene. And we have 46 chromosomes of this DNA matter that then is separated out, and half of it's from mom, half of it's from dad, and then we have mutations with those, and like it gets even crazier with that.
By the way, everyone, this is primarily going to be Dr. G leading this show tonight, so I'm going to be the questioner, But if you are having questions, immediate questions about what Dr. G is talking about, please field those to us. I will try to watch for them and stop him when he gets on a scientific nerdy roll.
When I go hardcore nerdcore.
And so I'll be the interrupter.
I mean, it's not like we're trying to synthesize a methylated alkaloid.
Because really, I'm here for you guys.
Oh, that's totally maybe true.
So a very small percentage recap. A very, 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 very tiny percentage of your genetics is unchangeable. So the majority of your genetics, this is the thing I like the most about this talk, or talks about epigenetics in general, is that we can change our genetics. I think I hear it a lot in my coaching. Somebody will say, oh yeah, I'm on blood pressure medication, but it runs in my family, so I just got to take the medication for the rest of my life.
Right.
And they're not even thinking about any sort of lifestyle factors. They're just like, this is a given. I've accepted this. I'm going to take this medication. Not knowing that there could be a lifestyle alternative that could affect the change of that genetic expression for that blood pressure.
Look at you. Yeah, that's true. Only 1% of genes dictate your life. So let's say only 1% of disease is truly genetic. That means 99% of all things people have that run in families are because if you do what they do, you will get what they get.
And you might have a predisposition to that, so inherited epigenetics, but you can still change that. And so probably most of you who are watching and paying attention already know that because we've said it before in shows previously. But if there's someone new, or maybe we just need to be reminded that there is more hope than we think for our health.
Right. Because, like my daddy, I'm going to get all southern, my daddy died of the diabetes, right? So type 2.
That's diabetes.
That's right. Us. That dude from the movies. Diabetes.
Okay.
So, I then might have a susceptibility to diabetes, but that means that I have to work harder to make sure that I never end up with my father's legacy. So, like, my A1C is 5.4. I don't want to brag. I'm not bragging, but it is awesome. Like,
yeah. So I think the last time I was tested, I was a 4 something.
That's some bull crap. You can't just be saying that.
I don't want to compete or compare, but so we have a question, Delana. Thank you for asking. How do you pronounce it?
What? Methyltetrahydrocannabinol.
The MTHFR.
Mother
effer issue not recognized by general practitioners. Why is it not recognized? Because it's out there now, and I think we talked about that before. Right. Why are people talking about this now? You can hear it. Some people have heard about it before, but why are general practitioners or the majority of Western practitioners not discussing it?
So it takes about 17 years before research becomes clinical practice. So what we find in research, and we're like, oh my God, this is well established. We have great peer-reviewed research. Like, it's common knowledge. You see NOVA specials about it or PBS specials, and then it takes 17 years before your general kind of doctor is learning this stuff, right? And then it takes decades upon decades before that ever becomes a standard of practice. Unless there's a drug that affects it, you most likely ain't going to hear about it.
I don't know if you already said this, but is part of that too the need that maybe doctors are waiting on the need for a legitimate amount of research?
No, there's shitloads for that.
Okay.
Tons. I mean, that's like, I had a patient, so I've had a few patients where we've been able to reverse hard code genetics. So fatal genetic disorders, we've been able to reverse that to 100% normal DNA. And so I had a patient, and then their geneticist at Stanford, and they said, well, that's not true. There's no such thing as epigenetics. It doesn't exist. And your doctor's crazy. And so I was like, well, it's on research and well published in Libraries of Congress, and like there's hundreds upon hundreds of articles from the best journals, and there's PBS specials and NOVA specials, and like, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. That's like denying, that B vitamins exist or something. It's like they only discovered that since the 40s, you know? So finally, the patient told her about that, and so she looked it up, and she's like, well, fine, it's real, but it doesn't affect this. And I was like, he said, well, what do you think about that? And she said, because she's still saying I'm wrong. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I looked it up, and the university that she teaches at across the hall is doing the research that she says doesn't exist.
Yeah,
That's so
doesn't
crazy.
Exist in her world.
So like one thing you learn, one thing at Harvard I learned, Harvard,
Here we go.
Shut it down. So patients are chronically suffering and dying prematurely based on what their current doctor doesn't know. And that's the reality of that.
Well, yeah.
Why doesn't my doctor know this? Well, your doctor ain't looking it up. Your doctor's not attending conferences that talk about that.
But your doctor's also trying to I don't want to say accomplish their quota of patients for the day, getting through as many as possible, as fast as possible, and
Yeah.
right? Isn't that true too? Like they're overloaded with their own work, so do they have the time to really do that research?
They don't. Not unless they really have passion for it. But one of the things too is like, one of my patients, like, I reverse like diabetes and eczema and psoriasis and Crohn's and stuff all the time. And one of the patients, I think she had Crohn's, and she got it reversed, but her brother-in-law is a doctor, and she said, oh my God, you have to like talk to this guy and learn this stuff, and all this stuff we're learning was wrong. And he says, I don't want to hear any of this. He said, I know what I'm doing. I just want to do what I do. I don't care if there's other ways. And that's crazy because, again, he just didn't even want to learn the stuff because it's just, more stuff.
Yeah.
Which I understand,
Yeah.
but...
So really, that learning and that education needs to happen earlier.
Yeah, and there is
medical.
lots of doctors that are doing this. There's lots of doctors even in psychology that are doing this. What'd he say?
Alfredo, my friend, is saying hello.
He's not your friend.
He is my friend. Yes.
He doesn't even know you.
You say that every time.
Alfredo and me went and painted at Picasso and Palette.
Alfredo and I are like this, okay? You can't touch that.
Have you ever painted with Alfredo? You're thinking of marinara. You're tight with marinara. But Alfredo... No, Alfredo's dairy.
He says it's Molly.
My best friend is Molly. I've been looking everywhere for Molly. Have you seen Molly? Molly. Yeah?
Yes.
Do you know what that's from?
No.
Tag a video.
I do not know all of your references. For those of you who are just joining us tonight, stay with us. We are talking about the MTHFR gene. That's how I'm going to refer to it tonight in the cleanest way possible. There it is. That's the actual gene we're going to refer to. But we're talking about this because it's kind of mysterious and we don't know a lot about it. And so Dr. G is going to enlighten us. If you have questions, please throw those out. It doesn't matter what they are. This is a safe environment here on the Dr. G and the Boss Show. So
anything we discuss, it's just all between us.
It's private.
It's all private.
It stays at the Dr. G and the Boss Show as well as on the internet.
That's right.
So, which is very safe indeed.
So, with that mutation then, so there's all these different mutations that take place, right?
Yes, so I want, please tell us what it is.
So there's all these different mutations, then of those genes that we talked about, the different genes that make up the whole DNA.
So this is a mutation.
And those genes go and create proteins or proteogenomics that then affect certain things. So they build tissue, they build your immune system, whatever, right? And if there's a mutation in there, then that gene doesn't work. And DNA is real simple. It's just T and A bind together, and then C and G bind together. So it's always a T and A, or A and T, or C and G, along. It's only 4 things. Like, isn't that crazy? Only 4 things. But if you have a C and a T that bind together...
You say it's very simple, but I'm sure it's already sounding confusing.
No.
Okay.
So if the C and T bind together, then that doesn't work, because it's supposed to be T to A or C to G.
Okay.
So then that gene becomes mutated.
Okay.
So methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase pathway is how we convert folate into what's called methyl tetrahydrofolate or methylene tetrahydrofolate or methylfolate. And then that becomes the active form.
Wait, stop. Say that again.
So folate from food has to go through the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase pathway.
Mother effer.
To then convert to the active form of methylfolate.
Okay, is that the only thing that it does?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But
I didn't
then
know that.
methylfolate is what then lowers homocysteine, which is one of the major cardiovascular markers.
Inflammatory marker.
That's right. And then that methyl tetrahydrofolate then goes in through the homocysteine cycle and creates methionine, which then regulates mood and behavior. Then folate by itself too goes and creates phosphatidylserine and phosphatidylcholine, which are pretty big supplements these days for memory and brain function.
Okay.
But you should just make these for free.
Okay, so
then
go ahead.
Through B6, it then creates glutathione, which is the major detoxification pathway through the liver, and so that's a huge issue for most people because of drug metabolism like Tylenol.
Okay.
And then it also goes the other direction through the folate cycle to make bioterapin, and through the bioterapin BH2 and BH4 pathway, that's the critical part because then that regulates thyroid production.
Ooh, okay. I think I have this mutation.
So these are for amino acids like tryptophan to convert to serotonin and melatonin for mood and sleep. It uses bioterapin, which is from the folate pathway.
Okay, so hold please. Can we stop there while the rest of us laymen
All right.
ingest this information?
The surgery went through. You're a woman now. You're a lay woman.
What?
You said layman.
Whatever. So, you're just one big distraction sometimes. Okay, so if this gene is mutated,
Word.
we can have inflammation,
Straight up. Cardiovascular.
Inflammation and homocysteine,
Straight.
mood disorders or issues.
Yeah.
That is. Oh, wait.
Oh.
Okay, mood disorders, memory problems.
Memory problems.
Memory problems, liver detox problems.
Well, yeah, it's a literally liver failure from like Tylenol.
Liver failure
Straight
because
up.
it can't process Tylenol, like something as simple as Tylenol.
Right.
Okay, and then thyroid issues.
And it also is the precursor for the phenylalanine pathway for PEA, for mood and behavior. It's also a critical one for like MIT talks about autism is a disruption of the octopamine pathway. And bioterapin is one of those things that takes tyrosine and creates octopamine, which then regulates our mood and behavior and how we react to things.
So, if we have this mutation...
Wait, there's one more thing.
Okay.
Can I say it?
Yes.
And it also regulates as a precursor to how we make L-dopamine into dopamine, which dopes us down, makes us feel good, so we don't have tremors, and we feel very happy and calm like I do all the time.
I so have this.
And then it regulates, dopamine converts into epinephrine, norepinephrine. That's why we can feel calm or we can feel jacked up and anxious.
Okay.
That's why your hands shake instead of having calmness. So epinephrine, norepinephrine, anxiety, and in small amounts for this process, it's basically just kicking ass and having like focus and being effective.
So, let me ask you this. So we talk a lot about causing. What's causing it? What's causing it? What's causing it? Is this something we are causing? This mutation?
So you know what's funny?
Or is it something we've epigenetically inherited, or both?
Well, so typically when I do a lot of epigenetics, and so one of the things with epigenetics is to say, how do things work normally? What do we do to cause the problem? And your cell, through DNA polymerase, edits out 10,000 mutations per cell per day. So whatever 10,000 times 100 trillion is that a gazillion? Or
yes.
Babillion?
Yep.
Something like that. So your body's constantly trying to repair these mutations.
Okay.
So when we have increased toxicity that causes that specific point mutation, and we don't eat enough nutrition to reverse genetics, then you end up with a maintaining of that DNA. So
we need that balance again of...
Yeah, so one of the things is there's not a lot of good information on, like, is it in vitro, or is it, is it mom and dad that pass this, or is it something we acquire? But it's funny because I read this thing that was like this big quack thing of like, these pseudoscientists are, which is ridiculous because it's major peer-reviewed research, but they were just saying like, well, they just, they'll say you got it from your parents or you got it during life, and that's not true. And it's like, there's only two ways you can get genetics mutations, either from your parents or from somatic. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So he's crazy.
Welcome, new watchers. Thank you for joining us.
Watchers. That sounds like a movie. So at some point, so this is a good question. Like, we don't quite really know that yet.
Okay.
Right? And that's one of those things that usually when I get patients that have certain things, then I do a ton of research, and eventually, it might take weeks, but eventually I will find the research that shows this causes this, right?
So if we don't know what's causing it, and I know we are going to get to this, but what do we do to reverse it?
Epigenetics. We create a diet create a lifestyle and diet that's consistent with life and longevity to reverse.
Have you guys memorized this yet?
That's like fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, legumes, and greens.
But we did have a question someone brought up, and I kind of want to bring it up too.
All right.
I have heard, as I'm sure that the people in the audience have heard as well, that they've heard methylfolate and methyl B being associated with this healing or reversing of this mutation.
Not at all. No, but the reason it works really well, and it needs to be methylfolate, but methylfolate is the end product. So folate converts.
It's created for you
through that pathway. If that pathway is mutated, then you don't create enough, and then those other biochemical processes slow down.
So essentially, you're just supplementing for what your body is unable to create.
Exactly.
So then, how do we reverse it?
Through epigenetics, fool.
Speaking of that, has anybody done 23andMe? And do you want to talk about 23andMe?
I did. Yeah, so there are, oh my God, there are so many expensive genetic tests out there of like testing like a handful of things like BRCA gene or methyl tetrahydrofolate, and just do 23andMe. So 23andMe, on the front end, they test 20 to so most people have 20 to 20,000 genes in their DNA. And that's 6 foot, there's 20 to 25,000 genes. And everybody has slightly different amount of genes. We don't all have the same exact DNA. Now, like your DNA versus my DNA is only 1% different, right? So between male and female, it's only 1% genetically different. But between us and a chimpanzee is only 3% genetically different. Like mice have 80% of the same genes. So we have a range of genes that are actually within our DNA. And I don't want to brag, but if you rounded mine up, I have 25,000.
Every time he says he doesn't want to brag.
It's brag.
Yes.
No, but it's like Martin Luther King, where he says, I'm not going to mention, and then he mentions the South. That's what.
Yeah, it's exactly like Martin Luther King.
I did that during the debate.
I'm glad that you compared yourself to Martin Luther King.
I say, look, I'm not going to bring up the fact that you don't do the dishes. I'm not going to bring up the fact that you don't vacuum.
Okay.
Because I'm a good person.
Okay.
See? Like that. So you're not saying it, but you're saying it. That's what I learned from Martin Luther King.
The only thing.
That and peace.
World peace.
World peace. So 23andMe is a great test. So if it tests your whole DNA, and it's like $160 to $199, so it's real affordable, and it'll test everything. But on the front end, when you log into the website, it'll only tell you a handful of things that they want you to know, because the FDA said you shouldn't know what's going on in your DNA because it'll freak the hell out of you. because people think DNA is destiny. But if you come to someone like me, we can actually download the raw data, put it through a different software, and look at every single gene in your body, and then talk about what that really means. And within...
Would you say that 23andMe, much like getting your biometrics taken or your blood tests taken, is like a snapshot in time?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course. Because your cells are reversing DNA mutations at the rate of 10,000 per cell per day. So that's the other screwed up part of this, is it's a very transient picture.
Yes.
Yeah, so kind of like when I take pictures of transients. It's the same thing.
Exactly.
I don't even, that doesn't even...
Not sure that made sense.
I don't even know where that goes.
But what do you say to the people in terms of 23andMe who think that that's a big conspiracy of the government trying to collect all your health information?
Okay, so every time you've ever given blood, they have your DNA.
Who? The government?
Who does the test, they literally have your DNA.
Yeah.
So they scrub your name and stuff off, and now, they sold it to the drug companies, because what they're doing now, the big thing is to do proteogenomic kind of psychiatry, proteogenomic disease management. So they look at your genes, and then they look at what are called CYP genes, and then they tailor medications or supplements to your actual genetics. So like some people like me, I once trying to impress a girl, which it did not work. I was showing her that I could take a machete and flip it behind my back and catch it by the handle. And then I cut my fingers off. So I went
For real, Joe?
Yeah, see it all the way around. Like that. She wasn't impressed. That's some bull crap. The stuff we go through for women trying to impress them, when all they want to be is heard and loved. So I'm in the emergency room, and they're stitching it up, right? But they gave me 22 shots of Novocaine or Xylocaine probably, to numb that out. 22 shots for 11 stitches. Well, I'm pretty sure there should have been more stitches, but I think because it was county hospital. I was young, and didn't have insurance, so they're pretty. Yeah, you can still see them like really well. Look at that. So,
oh yeah.
So, anyways, I have this thing that happens that if my CYP genes that are specific for metabolizing that specific drug metabolism, it actually is hyper metabolizing, so it's gone. So I felt every single stitch that went in, and it hurt so bad.
Is it always that way for you?
Yeah, like dental stuff. They had to put a porcelain filling in the back, and they drill, and they give you a shot in the mouth, and then it's just like, it's numb, and then they go to drill, and I'm like, whoa, dude, you gotta, they have to do gas.
Okay.
Because I metabolize that fast. So there's some people that drugs just don't work on.
Yeah.
And then there's people that have all the side effects. So they are slow metabolizers through that specific CYP pathway.
Okay.
And you can actually look that up on the back end of 23andMe.
Okay.
You can. I can. But.
So Deb has a comment.
Yes.
She says her adopted brother has Parkinson's, but no markers on 23andMe, nor in his biological family.
That's right. That's because the vast majority, or 99% of all disease, is not genetic. Like, I have all these people like, oh, I'm going to get my DNA tested because I have Crohn's and I think it's genetic. It is never genetic. Never. Right? So 99% of the time, it is what we do that causes the Parkinson's, that causes the diabetes, that causes the disease.
So can you just skip the genetic testing? And let's say in this instance, with this particular mutation, because what you said earlier was, oh, we just fix it with lifestyle. Yeah. Well, is there something specific for this particular genetic mutation that you need to do? You can't just say fix it with lifestyle, eat right, and exercise.
Right.
Is there more to it?
Yeah, it's a very specific epigenetic protocol that we go through. And so we want to stimulate very specific genes. So things like the SIRT gene, the HAD, the HAC, we want to do ubiquination, acetylation, methylation, to regulate and force that process. And even some of the things through butyrate, we can actually then cause kind of overdrive the DNA polymerase to edit out those mutations for us.
So break that down into what do people eat and drink and do?
Not be American. You know, it's crazy because a lot of the stuff that we talk about with that, you know, like brassica foods, cruciferous vegetables, green tea.
So there's
instead of
nothing
black tea.
specific? Like you can't say, go ahead.
That's a whole ton of specific things. But
okay.
It's like
Are we going to get to that?
3 pages. No, we don't have time for all that. That's like 3 pages.
Yeah,
worth
we
of
don't
stuff.
have time to tell you how to help yourself.
No, but you can be helped. But that's the thing, is it's like, you know, crazy amount of changes. But the funny thing is it's the diet of everybody else in the world. And so you look at America, where we have like 1 out of 1 for cancer as of 2010. Yeah, that's going to be a big problem. And what you're going to have to do is not what everybody else is doing. But if you look at something like, so like, say, American men have 1 out of 2 have prostates so large they can barely pee or ejaculate. But in Chinese men in China, it's 0. Right? Because their diet and lifestyle doesn't cause that thing. So that's what a lot of the epigenetics is knowing a whole ton of very specific details about that specific mutation, and then how we reverse those specific targeted genes.
Or like Jeff said, you could detox the body to start.
Well, that's a good start, yeah. But you did that same thing.
So.
Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, berry, legumes, and greens. Drink lots of water, get movement, you know.
Sweat.
Yeah, breathe.
Breathe.
And then sweat.
Sweat.
While you breathe.
Breathe.
Breathe sweating.
Sweat.
80% of all your bowel gas gets absorbed from your gut into your blood.
What?
Through your lungs, and you breathe out farts.
No.
Yeah. Most all farts, 90% of all farts are breathed out.
What percentage?
Something like 80-90%.
We've been doing this talk for 3 years, and we even did a talk on poop and farts, and you never said that.
I said that. I have. Probably twice. You just don't listen to me anymore. You're just like, tell me more, Patrick.
It's because I'm thinking my own thoughts and attending to the audience.
Yeah, you're not even listening to any of this. So, a couple things too is one, it's an easy treatment. So genetic testing is good.
Is there anybody, by the way, I know we only have a few in the audience right now, but is there anybody who knows they have it?
I do.
The mutation?
I do.
You know you have it?
Yeah.
Now I want to get this test
That
done.
explains a lot. No, but there's 85 different mutations for that specific gene, right? There's about 85 mutations. But it's really, the majority are the C677T and the A1298C that are the most prolific. And then if you have both those mutations, it can be a real problem. So a lot of patients that me and Dr. Padilla have, and then patients that we've seen that have this mutation, it's usually those people that are untreatable through typical processes, because they can't function because the process to function is actually mutated. But it's easily treatable. So outside of the epigenetic stuff that I do to try to fix everything, the management part is simple. Methyl tetrahydrofolate treatment. So methylfolate, like, 1,000 to 1,600 micrograms a day, and then track those changes. But like, I have that mutation too, but my mutation isn't one that really affects anything. So you could have a mutation of one of those 85, but if it's not one that really causes problems, it's not a big deal. And something like 50% of white people have that. It's like a cracker disease. And so like about 50% of white people will have that mutation, but not everybody has the symptomatology. It's only saying, do you have chronic symptoms that are most likely relatable to this, and then do the genetic testing and then see.
So you started to talk about supplementing, but with methylfolate.
Right.
But that is just the start to get people stabilized, correct? Because what I thought I was understanding was that we were going to essentially be reversing the expression of that mutation.
Well, that's the next thing. I mean, the first thing is always just make people feel better, palliative care, restore that pathology. or have restorative physiology, and you do that with the methylfolate supplementation. The other part to that is the reversing part, and that's a little bit more complicated process, but it's doable in theory. It's doable in research. It's doable, in physiology.
So tell us more about that.
Well, so you have to
that's
say, the first thing is you have to figure out what specific things mutate that gene pathway. And so that's a lot of exhaustive research. So I haven't actually did that for methyltetra. I haven't had a patient come in that wants to reverse that.
Okay.
Most of them that come in with that are severe are people that have horrible anxiety, horrible depression, bipolar, like really profound stuff. And then once they feel better, they're not interested really in making like real changes because they've been suffering so long. They're just like, no, I'm good. Like I'm happy and I can think and I can pee and poo and sleep.
They feel better, and so that's enough for them.
Right. So for people that have like fatal genetic disorders, they're invested in that process. They're like, you figure this out. So
sure, there's more at stake in their minds.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you say steak?
I said steak.
You know, I'm
that's probably the solution to everything.
Steak.
Yeah, that's really what our show's about tonight. Surprise!
Mm-hmm.
Steak.
We are sponsored by steak.com.
We're sponsored
We need to get
by
sponsors.
the bovine industry.
We need to get sponsors.
Sponsors.
Then we could like sell out.
Pharmaceutical sponsors.
Then I go from like cholesterol's a myth to like, did you know cholesterol kills everyone?
Did you know statins are great?
Statins are like totally the best and stuff. All that research about how much it causes hepatitis and muscle wasting disease, that's all just crazy stuff.
So, not to scare people out there. There are people doing their best trying to figure out their lives.
Yeah. So if you guys have questions as we wrap up, feel free to post those, and Holly will answer those throughout the week. And as you guys probably know, I'm going to Belize for a week to swim across the blue hole and swim with sharks and go through the jungle and caving with a headlamp on in the water.
To try and make everyone else feel bad about themselves.
So the Dr. G show...
Does that mean I get a vacation? It's on
Belize.
hiatus.
It'll be in Belize.
Oh. So it does mean I get a vacation.
Yeah. For me.
Yes.
Oh, we could do it together. We could do both. Like we did that with Dr.
Oh, man.
Awesomeness in Australia. Carrie.
We could, theoretically.
And I could just be at the beach.
I'm thinking about taking a vacation myself, though.
Where would you go?
Colorado, maybe.
Everybody goes to Colorado.
It's because it's close and it's mountains.
Belize is the new Colorado. And then they're flying me across the world to Thailand, and so I'm going to go to India, Thailand, and where else? India, Thailand, to the Thai Islands. India, Thailand, and maybe Cambodia. I'm trying to sneak across the border. So I'm going to do the Dr. G show maybe from there too. It'll be 12 hours off, but
you just have to time it right.
We can go to food. I'll go to food vendors, and
you should just do some Facebook Lives. Just some,
that's what I'm talking about.
Some solo Facebook Lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Okay. So you won't lose touch.
Oh no, we'll be here next week.
Never lose touch.
We'll be here next week. I'll still be here.
Okay.
So next week.
Stay with us. We are going to get to the solution to this talk.
Should we talk about
Stay with us. We've veered off.
We don't have time for all that.
We'll have to figure that out.
You understand? It's a lot of stuff, and it's like very complicated stuff.
Then can we get just some basics?
I already said the basics. We got to augment the genes through the SIRT, HAD, HAC. So we'll talk about all those things. So we'll talk. Okay, we'll talk about
Part 2.
Part 2 is epigenetic protocols for reversing genetic mutations.
I like that. That's interesting.
All right.
Okay. We'll do our best.
Fine. We'll talk about that next time.
Well, it's good that we didn't have anybody. We've got a few new people watching, I think. Do we have anybody who has the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase genetic mutation?
Damn. That's pretty good.
The mother effer.
And one of the things
genetic
too,
mutation.
as we close, and you guys answer that, is a lot of times they say you can detect it through the homocysteine gene to see kind of a backflow test, but that's not true because B6 and methyl B12 both do 50% of reduction of homocysteine. So S-acetylhomocysteine becomes glutathione through B6, and then homocysteine becomes methionine through methyl B12. So that's not true. That's a bunch of bull crap. So, yeah.
Can I answer a question? Tim, and I think we had another one. We are typically on Tuesdays.
Oh.
Dr. G had
yes.
had another obligation this
Mine-
last Tuesday, so we rescheduled today for a Thursday. So this is just an exception to the rule. So
Yeah, I forgot we're doing this on a different day. Because I forgot to mention that, because 3 out of my 4 daughters, because I'm a breeder, had orchestra.
I thought it was an award show or something.
The award show...
Or it was just a presentation, like recital.
Oh, no, that's right. That was Monday. Tuesday was the award show. And my daughter took their team to nationals. Nationals. And you see a picture of her, she's like...
In what?
The debate and forensics and all that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So she did a presentation on the vagina.
What about?
Oh, it's amazing. I need to like she is like the bomb. Like she is just like me and a little bit like her mama on the good side. As far as like being able her mom did forensics and I did debate.
Uh-huh.
And so I think there's that perfect amount, and then she has my sense of humor with stuff, and it was great. So she has a little pink box that's made of foam.
Uh-huh.
And then it has like a bunch of material that looks kind of like a labia.
What's the gist of the talk though?
About the vagina?
Yeah, what about it?
You know, stuff.
Oh.
I don't know.
Okay.
And then she puts her hand into the box to take out props.
Symbolically.
And so, again, like, it's already a shocking topic. And she calls it something like we're going to talk about... Oh, she talks about vagina dentatum. Vaginal dentatum or something like that.
Okay.
Which is the idea that the vagina has teeth. Do you know that? But I asked a friend who's a dentist, and he said, no, with gums like that, you couldn't have teeth. That's an old joke. All right.
All right.
So
are we at the
just leave on that.
at the end of our show?
Yeah.
So we will talk a little bit more about epigenetic protocols next week on Tuesday. To give you just a little bit more, please ask questions. Those of you who are watching and even watching the recording afterwards, if we didn't answer something you wanted to know, please ask those questions so that we can try to address those next time we have a show.
And you can always, if you're not getting your answer, call Holly after midnight at her home.
Yes, I am here for you.
She likes to wake up.
Yeah, love that. So, okay, we're all good?
I think we're all good.
All right. Thank you guys
we gave
for watching.
Just enough information to confuse everybody.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.